welcome everybody to Simply Human YouTube channel and podcast. Hey, Karen.
Hey, Christina. Excited about this topic.
Yeah, we had a little conversation. I don't know how it came up, but we started talking about dreams. And I know that people are really interested in dreams. And so, as a therapist who does dream work with clients and also having had the benefit of a Jungian trained therapist for 26 years, I got to use dream work as a really important part of my own personal journey. So I'm a really strong believer after all these years of really understanding firsthand how important it is to accelerate your growth. If you're able to remember your dreams and work with somebody who knows how to help you harvest the wisdom that's in that dream. We're going to go over today briefly what Jungian dream work is, and I'm going to give sort of the layperson's explanation of what dreams are and then how you work with dreams.
So, what I'm excited about at this topic is this is one that I'm just so thoroughly interested in. Instead of like talking it through ahead of time, this is where I'm excited that Christina and I can have it like we have our old conversations together. So, you may seem like when I'm very curious because I have not pre talked any of this with her. So, I'm so excited to get into this topic. Before we actually start, though, I'm going to ask you to don't forget the like button, subscribe to the channel, share with others that might be interested in this topic, and hit that notification button so you get to know when our new episodes are posted. And for the podcast listeners, hit the text us link with your comments and questions. Now, Christina, I really want to ask you, what are dreams? Because I'm not so sure I understand when dreams form and that type of thing. And why did you call this episode Ego Free Insight? That's an interesting topic that you brought up. So tell me more about that. That's intriguing within itself.
Yeah, it's really interesting because before I decided to become a psychologist, I had already been 5, 6 years into doing my own journey with my therapist, again, who is trained in Jungian therapy. And Carl Jung is a Swiss psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst. He was born in the late 1800s, so this is turn of the century. He was a contemporary of Freud, and he ended up breaking away. He believed that dreams, might be stuff you repress, but it's also parts of yourself that you have just not become conscious of yet. You haven't gotten to that state of becoming an awareness. And that if you work on dreams, this is why I call it harvesting wisdom, is that you can access information that is sometimes your own personal experience. Jung also believed in something called the collective unconscious. So it's shared human experiences that's also available to us in our unconscious. And even in contemporary science and research, we talk about something like historical trauma, that trauma that happened generations ago ends up getting sort of passed on to the generations. So that's an aspect of
That's interesting.
So this is what we're talking about, shared experience in the unconscious. But sometimes those patterns don't serve us. And it is helpful to start becoming aware of it so that we aren't being driven by experiences that have nothing to do with our life as it is today. Or, like I said, Jung believed that a lot of our creativity is in the unconscious, waiting to be unlocked. All of our wholeness, there was something he called the shadow, which is a little bit what Freud might have talked about, but there's parts of us that we aren't as aware of and we're not as comfortable with. And so we're like sticking in the closet. But we need all parts of ourselves to be whole. And dreams are a way that we can access that.
And that makes sense too for me, because not about the dreams, but even sometimes for me, when I wake up, I feel like sometimes I need that time to process. So that's beginning to make sense to me, because I feel like sometimes I wake up with a better solution to a design for my client's design. After I think about it overnight, I'm like, holy crap, that's brilliant, Karen. You know, when I wake up, because, seriously, that's what happens to me. Sometimes it's sometimes in the shower, but sometimes actually my best is I have to sleep on it.
Yeah.
Go, keep going.
Well, this is what I mean by the ego is offline or ego
Yeah.
free insight. So think about it this way. When you go to sleep, you are
Uh
still
huh.
breathing, right? You're still breathing. Your heart's still pumping. Your body
Right.
temperature is regulated. Our whole body is still functioning. Well, so is our brain. Our brain is also still doing what our brain does, and it continues to engage in problem solving because that's one of the main functions of the brain. But it's able to function and problem solve without being hindered by our ego identity or our sense of self when we're awake. And that's when all of our fears, our
Wisdom.
doubts, our insecurities get in the way. Like, I don't even want to think about that. Denial gets in the way, or that we've talked about difficult people, blaming, shame. All of these things get in the way of the ability to fully process a problem. But when we go to sleep, that part of our brain is not conscious, it's offline. And so now the problem solving is happening unencumbered. And if you can wake up and remember the dream and then know how to process it, you can have access to the creative problem solving that was going on while you were asleep.
And that's where you get some of the wisdom that you're talking about too, because of what's happening. And that's what I love about the word
Yeah.
wisdom. That's
Well,
cool.
and then
Cool.
get this. So when I was in school, though, if you read a Psych 101 textbook these days, the way they talk about dreams is just random firing of neurons, completely meaningless.
How
Mm-hmm.
interesting. But that's not true.
I can tell you, Jungian dream analysis has been going on for over 100 years. I
Yeah.
know my own experience has been over 26 years. And I have seen over and over and over again the insight that people get, the aha moment. So it resonates, something connects, it feels like a truth. And that's not random firing. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever in all my time seen a dream that was just random, you know, flashing of neurons. The reason why your psyche may pull from random things you might have experienced in the last couple of days is because it's just fresh in your memory and you might actually remember when you wake up. So
Okay.
it's grabbing something
That makes
familiar.
sense. Oh, so that's why you remember things more so often than not remembering, because if it grabs something more familiar is why it would stay.
Yeah. Or get this, nightmares. So the way I describe nightmares is think about when you're driving on the highway and you come across a horrific car wreck. What, as much
Okay.
as I don't like anything gory, but it's almost like you can't
I
help it.
don't either. I hate horror.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But instinctively, you look, don't you? You're driving, but
Yes, I know. I'm almost trained to look at any accidents, which is so interesting that you brought that
yes.
up. It's like,
So nightmares are pretty much working in the same way. It's most likely what's happened is you have had this dream in a less distressing form over and over and over again because something is trying to come to your awareness, but you're not remembering when you wake up. So it will wrap it up in imagery that is horrific because you'll remember it. It'll catch your attention the way a horrific car wreck will catch your attention, and you wake up and it'll be vivid and you'll remember it. And I can tell you, I have worked with clients, even veterans, who thought they were just having intrusive PTSD dreams, but we
uh huh.
worked it using Jungian dream analysis, and it's never about what, that's the thing about dreams. It's not literal. It's never about what you're literally seeing or the literal people. It's all symbolic and metaphoric. One veteran, he was having these what would have been interpreted by a lot of therapists as flashbacks, intrusive dreams of his friend getting blown up or whatever. But when we worked on it, he was really involved in the community. It turned out to be about town council. Is what it turned out to be about.
Oh my gosh, that's so yeah.
Yeah, but
So it wasn't about it when he was at war. It was about what's happening
was it about
in his life
yeah.
right now. At the
And
dang.
once we figured it out, and once we figured out what he
Wow.
needed to do differently, the dreams went away. He stopped having those
So
dreams.
this so this is kind of what I thought was interesting when you we were talking about dreams as a bridge, right? It almost bridges because it allows you to connect the conscious and the
Yes.
unconscious, and the brain is helping you make the connection. But what I love about too, the brain is protecting you because it won't make the connection until you're ready in some ways as well. But I love the idea as dreams as a bridge right between the two is what you're saying to me, and it's
How did
working
you
its
know that,
magic on its
Karen?
own.
How did you know that what you just said is absolutely right? You will not remember until you're able to and ready to remember. So what you just said is
The universe just told me that. I don't have no idea. It just makes sense after what you're telling me about because by just even his thing, it says that he was ready to like discuss that. And I mean, how blessed he was to have you as a therapist because everybody else thought it was, regarding his war experiences.
yes,
But
it would have been
that is
written as
so
just like,
interesting.
mainstream psychology would have said, oh, intrusive dreams. Here's
Yes.
some medication that will help with those nightmares instead of actually helping the mind digest this problem. It's saying, hey, this keeps happening. And you need to be aware that this is going on. And again, once he did, it went away. And it really helps us get insight into what is going on in our waking life. But here's the thing.
So I
Real quick.
okay.
The the psyche does not bring a dream just to say, nah, 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 nah. Yeah, your life sucks. Like it doesn't.
That's good to know because I feel like sometimes the dreams I do, I'm like, I think it's telling me that I'm getting lost all the time. So, so this is. I'm glad you said that because that makes me feel better. It doesn't. No, 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 no. What's your
Yeah,
problem?
yeah.
So
So that's the thing that it doesn't. Remember, it's problem solving. So it's going to present
I love
the
that.
pattern that you keep falling into, but you have to sort of look at all the elements in the dream because somewhere in there is the creative solution. There was a client I had who, it was so interesting. I've never come across this before, but her dream life was so structured. It was a dream in 4 parts. And the first part was, here's the situation, here's the pattern that you are confronting, here's the issue that I'm problem solving. Act 2 was, and then here's your normal sort of neurotic ways that you fall in the hole and get distracted and go into not effective strategies. Act 3 was, this is the consequence when you keep going into those patterns. And act 4 was, here's the new option if you want to take it. Over and act 4 acts over and over.
Wow! It even gave you. Oh my gosh! It even gave you the new
Yes.
option. It was for. Oh my gosh! So it's like a play. It
It
was almost like a
yep.
play that was repetitive because it was telling you the solution one by
She's
one
the
by.
only one I've
Oh
ever
my
seen who
wow!
had it so
That's wild
structured.
though.
Normally, you have to tease it apart and it's tangled in there, and it's you have to really work it. But hers was just like, okay, what was Act 1? What was Act 2? What was Act 3? And once we figured that out, and once you start working on your dreams, first of all, your subconscious goes, oh, you're paying attention. You will start remembering more and more and more of your dreams, and they start getting longer and longer and more
Oh,
epic.
okay.
It,
More epic. That's so.
it
Like more detailed is what you mean, right? More detailed and more long. Like what do you mean by epic when you say epic? Like.
yes, it's more. It starts getting to be more like an HBO series. All Game of Thrones. It's like, oh, you're paying attention. But here's another thing: you'll have longer dreams, but oftentimes it just starts repeating, but in sort of different perspectives. Dreams are what they say are holographic. So in every little fragment of the dream is the whole solution. So it doesn't matter what part you're working on, you're still going to see the problem and the solution. And I find that there will be this repeating pattern in really long dreams. It doesn't really matter if you remember the whole dream or not. It's like the brain is just turning on the issue it's trying to resolve. And it's saying, well, maybe you'll get it
But
this way. Maybe you'll understand it this way. Maybe if I give it to you this way.
so it's really acting as I that's it just gives me so much hope because It does, because when I think about the dreams, I'm not really sure. Like I wasn't thinking like you're thinking, because it's almost like I'm glad that it gives me some solution. It's just like understanding it better and delving into a little bit further, instead of just like I'm doing something wrong or stressing me out or this must be a stressful thing. I love the fact that you're telling me that it actually is working it out for me,
Yes.
which gives me hope for the dream, right?
Yes.
And I have to start looking for it, because I always thought it was just, oh, it's showing me something I already know. I'm lost all the time. I'm stressed. I don't know
Yeah. No, no.
what I'm doing in my life. So I'm glad to know that it's actually giving me sign. So it gives me the hope for my dream. But it's not always like it just isn't telling me exactly what I already know about my life. It's actually taking a step further to give me some wisdom, which I never thought
I
about.
have never
That's kind
crossed
of
a
cool. That's
dream.
kind of cool.
Not my own dreams are working with clients in 20 years that was a na 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 na, nothing novel.
That's
Never
good
come
to
across
know.
that. And I've never come across a dream that didn't have either the beginnings of the solution or the entire solution, the entire, like, here's the pattern you keep repeating. Here's the path to free yourself from the pattern. Never have I seen a dream that doesn't. Now, sometimes, a lot of times dreams are problem solving, but another thing that dreams do is sometimes it's compensating. In a sense of compensatory, it's about balancing. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. I had a coworker. Oh, by the way, so once people find out you know how to work with dreams, everyone starts no, Christina, I had a nightmare last night. Okay. But I had a colleague who told me she had a dream where she was in a plane and the plane was going to crash. And one of my, she was with one of my other coworkers and everyone was being given, sorry about the thumbs up bubble. Everyone was being given a parachute, but her. And what she says in the dream
Oh my god.
is as the plane's going down, and she says, wait, I deserve a parachute. And she woke up from the dream. And so the first thing that went to me is like, is this compensating? And so I said, were you being mean to yourself the other day? And she was like, oh, yeah, I was really down on myself, on my weight, and I needed diet. And she had just been beating herself up, oh, and I'm a terrible mother, and blah, 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 blah. And so her dream came to compensate, to say, no, you are deserving. You are as deserving as everybody else. And it was compensating.
And that's why she had said herself was said, no, I want that
Yeah.
parachute or I deserve the parachute.
In the dream. She was being mean to herself.
Wow.
Actually, then the same person came with a dream. And this is another example of compensating. So she came in and said, oh my gosh, I had a dream that someone stole my car. And I just cried. I cried through the whole dream. I couldn't believe my car was gone. That when I woke up, I actually ran to the window to see if my car was still there. She's like, what was that about? At first I thought, okay, a car being so stolen, like, a car. I was wondering if, like, do you have a performance review? Is this about moving forward? She was like, no, no. But on her own, she said, do you think this has something to do with the fact that my mother's birthday was on Saturday and her mother had passed away from breast cancer? And it hit me like so. And she didn't even, this is what I mean by archetypes, about something that really is part of the collective unconscious. The word Saturday comes from the Roman word for Saturn, the god Saturn. That's where we get Saturday.
Okay.
And her
Okay.
car was a Saturn. Then
Oh gosh.
that's what was stolen. And I said, did you acknowledge it was your mother's birthday? And she's like, well, I did. But then I didn't think about it. I was like, okay. I said, I think you were grieving the loss of your mom. You didn't want to think about it during the day, but that birthday coming did trigger the awareness and the memory of the loss, but you repressed that. So then the dream came to say, we're going to process that grief. And it did it by having her Saturn be like, it's the thing on Saturday that you lost, stolen. And then in her dream, she grieved. She grieved and grieved and grieved. So it compensated for the repression during the day. That's just like, wow.
But when you left that, or when you explained that to her, because you said the dream, grieved
Yeah.
it. Did she still have to then go through a grieving process because it was missing the conscious grieving process? Because she
No.
unconsciously grieved in the dream.
The emotions were so visceral that even when she woke up, she was feeling it. So it's like, it's just when you're awake, just
Oh, okay.
recognize what that was about. Just own it because that allows you to digest it. And I just said, if you don't want to have a dream like that in the future, I would suggest not ignoring important things.
I think it's so interesting what you're saying though, because what I love about what you reminded me of was the fact that it's symbolic, right? So it's not purely like if I'm lost in the high school, or it looked like not my high school, but some high school, and I'm going up this ramp. It's not that I'm lost in a high school, or it's not about my high school or anything. It's the symbolism that's not even about a school,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's the whole point of it, which I think is so interesting that it's not what I would think it would be because my brain, and I love what you said earlier too about the brain is trying to find a way because my dreams may be different, but it could be about a similar thing, right? About the topic because it's trying a way to like wake me up to say, hey, this is the topic, right? So I love that feeling. So I guess I was just trying to think through when you think about this. I'd love to hear more about practical tips on how we can start to do this and then also some dream themes like symbolism that comes up
Yeah.
regularly.
So if you want to start, one thing I was going to say, how do you start doing this on your own when you're not doing it with somebody who knows how? And I'll give you a little bit of structure, but this is where it's helpful to find
To go to
a
somebody.
Jungian
Yeah.
trained therapist, or, I've done it with friends where they get good enough at doing it that we can do it with each other. So I can give you some tips. I took a class as well. And at the end of this video in the show notes, I'm going to have a link to my instructor. He actually passed away, Jeremy Taylor, but his website is still up. And he's written a number of different books to help guide you in doing Jungian based dream work on your either individually or in a group. So I'll have that in the links. So one thing is first start writing down your dreams. Okay, when you first start, you're going to probably remember just little snippets. That's fine. Keep a notepad by your nightstand because you might wake up in the middle of the night. Just jot down a little bit or grab your phone and dictate it, whatever works for you. And over time, like I said, your unconscious goes, oh, they're paying attention. You will start remembering more and more and more. Okay, so start with writing it down. When you write
I
it
love that.
down, write it in the first person as if it's happening now. So don't write it as if it happened in the past. Don't write, I was lost in a school. You write, I am lost in a school. So you write it as if it's happening now, and that's really important part of it.
Okay. Okay.
Now, this is also key because there's a lot of books out there that are, this is what your teeth falling out means. Or you can go online and someone has.
You're, I'm sorry. Just the teeth falling out just got me cracking up. Like, what?
That's
What
a
you telling me
reoccurring one
about?
for me. But
Oh, that teeth falling out.
oh, it's awful. I had one where my teeth were falling out and I'm trying to go to the dentist and with my mom, and I was so mad and she wasn't paying attention, and I'm like, first I'm yelling, and then it was like my rage was so bad it was showing up on a computer screen, and then it wasn't even words, it was all like emojis of bombs exploding, and I was all like speaking in tongues. I was so enraged. I was My therapist is like, well, what are you.
What did she say? I know. Can you share? What did she
Yeah, she
say
was
on that?
asking like where I felt powerless because I was unable to get
Ah,
my needs met,
oh,
and
because your teeth are falling out.
and I you don't. She's like, it was like I didn't have a bite anymore. You know how important your teeth are for.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
Now
Okay.
that was with me. Now let me explain this. This is really key. Only the dreamer can interpret their dream. I mean, you do it with somebody, but only the dreamer knows. You feel an aha, like this resonates. That's why it doesn't work to just go to a book and read, If you dream about, your teeth falling out, it
Falling
means
teeth.
this.
Yeah.
And you're like, that doesn't
Yeah.
resonate for me. So what I
Yeah.
do, because your own mind is dealing with your personal experience, your life, whatever's handed down to you and what's meaningful. And it is grabbing the symbols that are unique to you. So, what I do when I'm working with somebody and say, they have, there's a bunch of tigers pacing around in a pen and there's a box in the center. So I'll say, and this is how my therapist worked with me. She's like, okay, what is a tiger? Like, pretend that I'm from Mars and I don't know what a tiger is. Because what that question does is it prompts you to free associate. And it's in the free association that the meaning that's unique to you surfaces. So we'll go like, yeah.
Oh, I see. Because what a tiger means for me, based on my background, the tiger could mean something different than someone from a different personality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I mean, a different
Mm-hmm.
person, right? Based on their background, because
Mm-hmm.
the tiger is very significant in the
Yes.
Chinese. Um, so for me, it may have a different impact or meaning, right? And that's why you want to ask that question. I love that idea of free association because you don't. That's why you don't want to be limited by a book,
Yeah.
because you don't want to be set that is it, that's the frame, and it resonates in your body too, right? Because it's like you'll feel it, the aha, like you'll feel a piece of,
Yeah.
oh, I get it now, right?
Yeah, like I had
Oh,
a
okay.
dream of someone gave me a box of 3 baby tiger cubs. And it was like, oh my God, these baby tiger cubs. I happened to be in school at that time and I actually went to the Jung Institute in San Francisco and got to go to
Uh-huh.
their archetypal library. And they have these card catalogs, and you take any symbol and you can look it up. So I looked up tiger and it brought up the Chinese symbolism. I can't remember if it's yin or yang or the spiritual aspect of tiger. It was super cool. And I, wrote a paper about it. Then I did some artwork. This is called amplifying a dream. You write it down. You could do some artwork around it. You make a collage out of it. Active imagination, because what you're doing is you're trying to amplify it being in your conscious mind, because that's what you're wanting to do, is bring the unconscious to consciousness. And yeah, so it's really unique to the dreamer. And so this is like, for example, and again,
I love
it's
that.
also not literal. So after I got divorced for many years, I would have dreams of my ex-husband. And I'd be like, oh, why am I keep having a Bob dream? A lot of people will be like, oh, am I still hung up on my ex? Is that what that's about? And I'm like, no, that's not what it's
That's,
about.
yeah,
Not what
okay,
it's about.
okay, okay.
What does your ex represent to you? And so for me, it was selfishness. And he would keep coming
Ah,
up in my dreams because the part of that was repressed for me and shadow for me was being more selfish in a healthy way, like self affirming, self validating, self loving. So, in order for me to do that work, I had to grow to stop self abandoning. I kept having Bob dreams. And it was hard because I'm like, oh, I don't want
oh,
to be selfish.
wow.
I was like, oh, put it back in the closet. Put it back in the closet. And my therapist, which is very patient with me, very good, was like,
Ah,
okay. I'm like, nope, nope, I don't want to lick it. I could do this without having to be anything like that. Like, no, no, no. I had to figure out what the healthy version of that was. What is this self affirming, self love, self validation? And that's how it comes out. So many people I have where they're stressed out because maybe they're married and they have a dream and like their best friend's husband's in it or something like that. And they'll be like, oh my God, am I falling? I'm like, no, tell me who is, Jeff. What is Jeff like? What's his personality like? Because these are the associations. And then the question is, do you know that part in yourself? Because everything in the dream, for the most part, almost everything in the dream is a representation of yourself and your psyche. There's sometimes an aspect of the collective. Like I always have like big groups of Asian like friends from high school. My dreams. It's just like more, that's represents a little bit more the environment. and the context. But most of the specific things, animals, rooms in a house, vehicles, it's all part of your own psyche, your own subconscious. So you do free association on whatever the symbol is, and then you say, where do I know this in myself?
I love that because, again, this is what's important about these dreams, because it's not about other people, is what you're saying. It's all about how your psyche is helping you grow and evolve so that you become more resilient, you become more stronger, in yourself. And I think that's what I think I never knew about the value of dream, because it's helping you become a better evolve.
Yeah, well, it's helping you grow. Like Jung
Yeah.
believed that the process of growing and healing was becoming whole. And you can't be whole
Yes.
if there's all the parts of you that are in the unconscious. You have to bring that into
Right.
consciousness to be individuated, to be your whole self. So that's what I see it as, is like the journey of becoming is integrating all of this material, and whatever's relevant in the moment, because it's what's in your life right now,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going to show up in your dreams. Now
Oh, this is so
here's a
exciting.
caveat.
Yes.
There are archetypal symbols. What I mean by archetype is it transcends time, culture. It's something like
Okay.
nighttime, wherever you are in the world. If you look at spiritual traditions or whatnot, these symbols of mother, nighttime, the sun, the moon,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the culture is, we all have approximately the same meaning attached to these
Mm.
symbols. So there are some of these archetypes, like nighttime is generally, the material is still pretty unconscious. So if you're having a dream and the scene is occurring at nighttime,
Uh-huh.
that material is just now starting to surface, but not going to fully available. It's becoming available, but it's telling you something deep in your unconscious.
So when you say material, what are you talking about? Explain that word. The
Oh,
material is
the
starting to.
material from the unconscious, your unconscious,
Okay.
whatever, starting to come up.
Okay.
Another symbol is water. Water is a pretty universal symbol of our emotional world.
Oh, okay.
So when I was
Okay.
first in therapy and I was dealing with major depressive disorder and anxiety and my life was falling apart, I had all these tsunami dreams. It was like it'd be tsunamis. It would be tsunamis with explosions and bombs going up. Like it was always catastrophic tsunamis, 100-foot tall waves, and this feeling of being like I'm gonna die, like emotional screaming. And at that time, what was repressed for me was my emotional world and feelings. I really was in my head,
Oh.
analytical. That's where my confidence came from, and just the way I was raised is feelings were weakness. So I had really repressed all of that, but that's repressing half of my ability to know anything is through your emotions. So my emotion were just like pounding at the psychic door saying we gotta blow this crap, but this is not working, these defenses are not working, tsunamis coming. And once I started doing that work, the tsunami dreams went away.
Oh my gosh. I just remember, because it just went in my brain, when I actually had fibromyalgia at one point. And I remember I had this dream of somehow we used to go to Maryland, Ocean City, Maryland. And we were in the condo there. And I was looking out, and the waves were like taller than the buildings, and it
Yeah.
was coming right at me. Now, it wasn't going, it was just like coming closer and closer at me. So it was really interesting because it wasn't flowing down. It was like the normal waves. It was like
Yeah.
taller than the building coming right at me. And now now it makes sense, because that's why in fibromyalgia it was like I'm not fully like this big emotions, fear. I'm not really being who I am, is all retained in. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, after all these years, 20, 30 years later, 20 years later, wow.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
And
What about a dream involving a house and its rooms? What does that
yeah,
represent?
this is really common. People have dreams about being in a house, exploring a house, being in a part of a house. So the house generally represents your psyche and different parts. So often the attic is where, when you think about it, you think about movies, the attics is where, you have the old sea chest. You
You
store
store the
old
memories, right?
memories, old
Yeah.
family stuff full of cobwebs. So if you're going up into the attic, it's something about really sort of what's been handed down, the past, something in your family. Often, again, unique to each dreamer, but we're talking about archetypes now. The basement, we think about the basement and horror. Why do horror movies use basement so much? Because there is a collective meaning that we ascribe to basement. The basement is where scary things are. The basement is where danger is.
Oh.
Film relies on archetypal images. So that'll help you understand when you're coming to an archetype. So when we're in the basement, it's usually stuff that's our shame, it's stuff that's repressed, it's something we're afraid of. Maybe it's a trauma is down there and we don't want to go down to the basement. It's scary, it's dark, it's unknown. And then on the main level, it's almost like your conscious life is the main level of a
Yeah. Yeah.
house. And I've had people say, like all the doors, I try to open the doors, but they're locked, and it's like, okay, where are there things that you're not, you're sort of blocking off? You've almost like created a partition for yourself,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
bracketed something
Okay.
away. Like in one of my dreams, I had done like several years of work on one particular area of wounding. And in my dream, it was a closet. And I opened up the closet and it was like all cleared out. There's just a couple of things hanging. And
Oh,
I walked
interesting.
in, I went, oh my God, it's so spacious in here. And I was like, yeah, I can just get rid of those. I'll give it to Goodwill. And I closed the doors. And as I'm walking, there's another closet. And I glanced at it and like you could tell it's just bulging, like filled with stuff.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not gonna look in that closet. My therapist was like, no, And now it's time to start addressing all that. The other one's like my father issues, the other my mother issues. I was like, no, we just keep that closet closed. So I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I worked so hard to clear out this closet. So that was a bummer. Uh, so the other thing that the dream might do is it uses, I know my dreams do this, my brother's dreams, it uses puns.
What's an example of like a pun? I'm
A,
like
a
a.
pun is a play on words.
Oh, okay.
So there was something that there was somebody I was working with who had some grief issues going on, but they had
Mm-hmm.
a dream about being at the beach, and they're like, oh, and I had a baby whale on my shoulders. And a way, and then after we processed it a bit, it was oh wait, like not WHALE, but whale, WAIL, like wailing, to cry.
Oh, that's what you mean by. Oh,
A
okay.
play on
Yeah.
words.
Okay. Got it. Okay. That's so
Or
interesting.
I
That's so
had my
interesting.
dream is so full of puns. Like we always have to look at, is this a play on words or is it the actual thing? Like I had a nightmare where I had been a flying commando with my unit, and we were going after terrorists. And so we're flying, and literally we're flying. It was so cool. We're flying in formation. And then I see my other dog who's passed away. I see my dog running underneath, and she's gonna alert the terrorists. And it was like she's gonna ruin the mission. So I have to fly down. I grab her, and I remember I wrap a towel around her snout, and then I take my knife off and I sever off her nose so she will bleed out and die. I have to kill my own dog. Okay. I woke
Oh
up.
my God, that's terrible. I'd be shaken.
I woke up horrified, crying. I
Oh my
think I called
gosh.
my therapist in the middle of the night. I'm like, what is this about? And then she did the okay. Tell me about Sydney, my dog Sydney. And I start describing Sydney, and I happened to just had an incident where her ball, like we were playing with her ball, and her ball's like right in front of her. She can't find it, can't see it. But when the ball is under the sofa and not visible, somehow she knows the ball is there. And she's a hound. And my therapist said, "Oh, isn't that funny? It's like she knows with her nose. Like she knows, Knows, knows with her nose." And then we both had a big
Okay.
aha, like,
Aha.
like, so if everything's a part of my dream, usually an animal represents your instincts, because it's not in a human form, it's an animal form.
Right.
And so it's this
Yeah.
instinctive part of knowing, and I'm cutting it off. I'm severing from my knowing. She said, "Where are you cutting off from your knowing?" And it's this part of
Oh,
you that's
interesting.
very task focused. It's just like, get her done like a commando. It's like, I just got to stay focused on the mission and at any cost. And I was
Right.
very
Right.
cut off from my body at that time. And I didn't have a good sense of my feelings. This is, during tsunami dream time. And it was so powerful. And this is what I mean about a nightmare. It was so important for me to be aware I was doing this, that it wrapped it up in the worst nightmare possible, that I would absolutely remember it when I woke up, so that I could start bringing awareness and start dealing with, how do I stop doing this to myself? So that, I mean, that kind of puts together symbolism, puns, and only the dreamer knows. In a
Yeah.
nightmare, you can see how all the components come together in that one example.
So I would love to go on with this, but we're really out of time because I wasn't keeping track. So I'm so interested in this. So let's just, one thing I remember people about the resource that she suggested from Jeremy Taylor. And then if you were to tell people as a conclusion of this, what's the conclusion and takeaway that you want to share?
If you want to accelerate your personal growth journey, find someone to work with you and your dreams. It's one of the few ways that you can bypass the ego and access the insight that you need to overcome whatever the patterns are that you keep finding yourself in over and over again. But your ego won't let you let go of that particular coping strategy. So if you want to accelerate that growth, find somebody, start just writing down your dreams. And if you check out the books, start getting some books from Jeremy Taylor's website, because they're really excellent. And it's really along the lines of dreamwork, the way I'm talking about it. And then
Mm-hmm.
start doing those two questions. Free associate. If I was an alien from Mars, how would I explain what a monkey is? Whatever it is. And once you write all that down, you ask yourself, where do I know this in myself? So even if you just start trying to
Yeah.
do a little bit of your own work.
Right.
Now remember, your ego is going to be sitting right with you. And it's going to be like, no, 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 no. That's why it's hard to do it by yourself.
But I also think what's important about free association, just to put a tag on that, is the best way to do free association is just to write. Like, don't even think, just write whatever comes in your brain with the free association. That's the way. That's the best way to do it, because then your ego can't get in the way, or it wants to, but you're just writing whatever comes up. So this is so exciting. So again, I want to thank everyone for listening, and I just want to just say, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel as we talk about this and other topics, and visit some of our other topics as well. Leave some comments about this. Tell us what you liked about it, what you learned about yourself, things like that. Email us at simplyhuman.connect@gmail.com, or connect on any of your social media. And we are so excited to bring this topic to you, and we look forward to our next session. See you, everybody. Thanks again, Christina.
Yeah.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everybody.